It was one of those stinking hot Sydney afternoons just before Christmas, the kind where the air feels thick enough to chew and even the cicadas sound pissed off. Lila had driven over to her mother-in-law's place in Penrith for the usual Boxing Day leftovers, cold ham, potato salad, and the inevitable interrogation about when she was going to move on from losing Dave. She'd only ducked back inside the house to grab her sunglasses from the kitchen bench. The sliding door was half open, letting the fly screen do its half-assed job, and the aircon was humming loud enough that Val and her two sisters, Maureen and Bev, probably thought no one could hear them over the drone. Lila paused in the hallway, one hand on the doorframe, because the tone in Val's voice was different. Not the usual fake sympathy drip she saved for Lila, but something sharp and gleeful, like she'd just won the meat tray at the RSL. "Thanks to that silly cow, we're rolling in it now, like cheese in butter," Val said, dragging out the old Russian saying she'd picked up from her own mother-in-law decades ago. Who'd have thought the silly girl would be worth so much dead? Maureen let out a snort that turned into a full cackle. $500,000, Val. Half a bloody million. And she still thinks the payout was 20 grand, to cover the funeral and a bit extra. The girl's got rocks in her head. Bev chipped in, voice low and conspiratorial. "You should have seen her face when you told her the insurance company stuffed up the paperwork and there was hardly anything left. Went white as a sheet, poor love. Didn't suspect a thing." Val laughed again, the sound harsh and triumphant. "Course she didn't. Too busy crying over our Davy to read the fine print. I told the broker to send all the statements straight to me, the grieving mother, I said. The widow's in no state. He didn't ask twice. Blokes like that love a sob story." Lila's stomach lurched. She pressed her back flat against the cool plaster wall, heart hammering so hard she was sure they'd hear it over the aircon. Her sunnies were forgotten on the bench, she couldn't have moved if she'd tried. Maureen again, smacking her lips like she was already spending it. "That cruise in February's paid for, the new kitchen's ordered, and there's still enough left for the Gold Coast unit reno. All because little Miss Lila didn't think to ask for the policy number." "Exactly," Val said, smug as a cat in cream. "She signs whatever I put in front of her. Told her the bank needed a new authority so I could help with bills. She scribbled her name without even reading it. I swear, if Dave hadn't married that dimwit, we'd still be scraping by on the pension." Bev lowered her voice. "Just keep her living in the spare room, Val. Keep her working those double shifts at Coles. Long as she thinks she's a burden, she won't rock the boat. By the time she figures it out, if she ever does, the money'll be gone." Val clinked her teacup against theirs. "To Dave's life insurance," she said. "And to the silly cow who's paying for our retirement." The three of them burst out laughing, the sound echoing down the hallway like nails on a chalkboard. Lila stood there frozen, the heat pressing in from outside and something colder spreading through her chest. Every kind word Val had said since the funeral, every hug, every, "You poor love, stay as long as you need," it had all been part of the act. She slipped back out the sliding door without a sound, pulled it shut behind her, and walked across the sunburnt lawn to her beat-up Corolla. Her hands were shaking as she gripped the steering wheel, but her mind was suddenly crystal clear. They thought she was thick. They thought she was broken. They were about to find out how wrong they were. For the last 8 months, Lila had been living in Val's spare room like some stray that got taken in out of pity. The room was tiny, barely big enough for the single bed and the rickety wardrobe, with a window that looked straight onto the neighbor's brick wall. Val called it temporary, but every time Lila mentioned looking for her own place, Val would clutch her chest and say, "Oh love, you're not ready yet. Stay here where we can look after you." And Lila, raw from losing Dave in that stupid workplace accident, crushed by a forklift at the warehouse in Blacktown, had believed her. She'd believed every word. The funeral had been paid for, Val said, out of the small life insurance policy Dave had through his super. Only 20 grand after the fees and taxes, Val had sighed, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. Hardly enough to cover the casket and the wake, let alone anything else. "We'll have to tighten our belts." Lila had nodded, numb, and handed over the death certificate without a second thought when Val asked for it to sort the paperwork. She'd signed the bank forms Val slid across the kitchen table one evening, forms that gave Val authority over the insurance claim, just to help out. Lila's eyes had been too full of tears to read the fine print. So she'd gone back to her job at Coles in Penrith, stacking shelves and scanning groceries, picking up every extra shift she could get. Her feet ached constantly, her back screamed by the end of each double, but she told herself it was the least she could do. Val had lost her only son, after all. The least Lila could do was pull her weight. Meanwhile, Val and the aunts had been living it up. Lila only pieced it together later, once the bank statements came to light, but the money had started rolling in 3 weeks after Dave's death. $500,000, paid straight into a joint account Val had quietly opened in both their names. From there, it vanished in chunks. 10 grand here for a much-needed holiday to the Gold Coast. Doctor said I needed sunshine after the shock. 25 grand deposited into the account of a kitchen company in Brookvale for marble benchtops and a fancy smeg oven. Another 30 grand wired to a cruise line for a 14-night trip around New Zealand in February. We deserve it after everything. 15 grand to a real estate mate of Maureen's for the deposit on renovating the little unit they owned up at Surfers Paradise. All of it done quietly, carefully, with Val forging Lila's signature on transfer authorities when needed or using the online banking access she'd talked Lila into setting up, so I can pay your phone bill for you, love. Val had even bragged about it on the bowling club WhatsApp group, screenshots of which the police later pulled from her phone. Girls, you won't believe it, Davey's policy came through big time. Little widow hasn't got a clue. Reckon we're set for life. Tears of joy, clinking glasses. Lila had kept living on instant noodles and whatever leftovers Val left in the fridge, washing her uniforms in cold water to save on electricity, turning down invitations to go out because she couldn't afford it. She'd handed over half her pay each fortnight to Val for board and keep, money that went straight toward Val's poker machine habit at Panthers. Every Sunday, Val would pat her hand and say, "You're doing so well, love." Dave would be proud, and Lila would force a smile, swallow the lump in her throat, and go fold another load of Val's washing. She'd thought the exhaustion was grief. She'd thought the constant tightness in her chest was missing Dave. She'd thought the way Val watched her like a hawk was concern. Turns out it was just greed. The worst part, the part that kept her awake that first night after overhearing them, was realizing how neatly they'd played her. They'd counted on her being too broken to ask questions, they'd bet on her guilt, her politeness, her desperate need to be useful to the family that was all she had left to Dave. And they'd almost won, almost. That afternoon, Lila didn't go straight home. She drove around Penrith in her rattling Corolla with the aircon busted, windows down, letting the hot northerly whip through the car while her mind raced faster than the speed limit. She ended up parked outside the Westfield, staring at the Coles sign where she'd be due back on shift tomorrow night. For the first time in months, the thought of scanning groceries until her feet bled made her want to scream. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts until she found Sarah K. Uni. Sarah Curry, the sharp as a tax solicitor who'd sat next to her in contract law back at Western Sydney Uni. They hadn't spoken properly in years, just the odd Facebook like, but Sarah had always been the type who'd fight tooth and nail for anyone getting screwed over. Lila hit call before she could talk herself out of it. "Leels, mate, how are you holding up?" Sarah's voice was warm, genuine. Lila almost lost it right there in the car park. "Not great," she managed. I think Val's been ripping me off. Big time. Dave's life insurance. I just overheard her bragging about $500,000. Silence for a beat, then Sarah's tone shifted, calm, professional, lethal. "Right, don't say anything else on the phone. Meet me at my office in Parramatta in an hour. Bring whatever paperwork you've got, death certificate, any letters from the insurer, bank statements if you can grab them." Lila exhaled shakily. "I don't have much. Val kept everything. Then we'll get it another way. See you soon." An hour later, Lila sat in Sarah's tidy office above a Lebanese bakery, the smell of fresh manarish drifting up the stairs. Sarah listened without interrupting while Lila recounted every word she'd overheard, every suspicious expense she'd noticed in hindsight. The sudden new kitchen, Val's flashy new iPhone, the cruise brochures left accidentally on the coffee table. When Lila finished, Sarah leaned back, fingers steepled. "This isn't just dodgy, Lila. This is fraud, possibly theft as a trustee if she was handling the policy. We can go straight to the police, but first we need evidence that'll stick." She picked up the phone and dialed the insurance company, putting it on speaker. Using Lila's full name, date of birth, and Dave's policy number, which Lila miraculously remembered from the funeral paperwork, Sarah requested a full claims history and duplicate statements be sent to Lila's email immediately. The representative hesitated until Sarah introduced herself as Lila's solicitor and mentioned potential misappropriation of funds. Suddenly the representative was very helpful. By the time Lila left the office, the first PDF had already landed in her inbox, a payout confirmation for $512,000, paid 7 months earlier into an account ending in the digits Val had once made her memorize, in case of emergencies. Next morning, December 27th, Lila called in sick to Coles for the first time ever. She felt zero guilt. She drove straight to her bank branch in St. Mary's, the one where the joint account had been opened. The teller, a young bloke named Josh who'd served her before, recognized her and gave her a sympathetic smile. "How you going, love? Haven't seen you since." "Yeah." Lila forced a small smile. "Actually, I need to see all transactions and authorities on the account I share with Valerie Thompson. And the original policy documents if they're linked." Josh's eyebrows shot up when the full amount flashed on his screen. "Ah, give me a sec." He disappeared out the back and returned with the branch manager, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s named Karen. Karen took one look at the account history, massive outgoing transfers signed with what was clearly a forged version of Lila's signature, and her face hardened. "This doesn't look right. We're obligated to report this to the police fraud squad if there's suspected identity theft or unauthorized transactions." "Do it," Lila said quietly. "Please." By midday, 2 detectives from Penrith Lac were sitting in Karen's office, taking Lila's statement. They were polite, thorough, and visibly pissed off on her behalf. One of them, Detective Sergeant Maria Rossi, gave Lila her direct number. "We'll need to seize Mrs. Thompson's devices and bank records. You still living at the same address?" Lila nodded. "I'll be at a mate's place tonight. Don't want to be there when." Maria gave a grim smile. "Smart. We'll time it for when she's likely home." That evening, Lila packed a single overnight bag, left a note on the fridge saying she'd gone to visit a friend in the Blue Mountains, and drove to Sarah's spare room in Guildford. The next day, December 28th, Val came home from her weekly lawn bowls at Panthers, arms full of raffle prizes and a fresh perm, only to find Maria and her partner waiting on the veranda with a search warrant. Lila had made them a pot of tea earlier and left biscuits on a plate, a small act of courtesy that somehow made the whole thing feel even more savage. Val's face, as captured later on the officers' body cams, went from smug to confused to pure terror in the space of 30 seconds when they asked her to unlock her phone and hand over her laptop. The cruise tickets were still open in her browser. The WhatsApp group with Maureen and Bev was full of champagne emojis and plans for the Gold Coast Reno. Val tried the tears first. "I'm just a grieving mother." Then the outrage, "That ungrateful little bitch is lying." But by the time they led her out to the divvy van in front of half the street, she was silent, mascara streaked down her wrinkled cheeks. Lila didn't watch it happen. She was sitting on Sarah's balcony, drinking a cold VB Sarah had pulled from the fridge, staring out over the rooftops as the sun set red and fierce behind the city skyline. For the first time in 8 months, she felt something other than exhaustion. She felt free. The trial came quick. 6 months later, winter of 2026, cold enough in Sydney to make the courthouse feel like a freezer. Val, Maureen, and Bev pleaded not guilty at first, all tears and family misunderstanding, but the evidence was a bloody sledgehammer. Forged signatures, bank transfers timed to the minute, WhatsApp messages that read like a crime novel written by greedy pensioners. By the end of the first week, their barristers were advising guilty pleas to avoid heavier sentences. Val got 18 months in Silverwater Correctional Centre for fraud and theft as a fiduciary. Maureen and Bev copped 12 months each, suspended because of their age and remorse, but with massive restitution orders. The judge, a no-nonsense woman from Campbelltown, looked straight at Val when she said, "You exploited a grieving widow for cruises and kitchen renovations. That's not a misunderstanding. That's contemptible." Lila sat in the public gallery every day, dressed sharp, new blouse, hair done, chin up. She didn't cry once. When Val was led away, she finally turned and caught Lila's eye. Val mouthed something, maybe, sorry, maybe, bitch, but Lila just gave her a small, calm nod, the kind you give a stranger on a train. Then she walked out into the winter sunshine and never looked back. The money came back faster than anyone expected. Once the fraud was proven, the bank reversed every dodgy transfer they could trace. The cruise line refunded the full amount after the police tipped them off. Even the kitchen company ripped out the marble benchtops and returned most of the deposit rather than face a civil suit. After legal fees and restitution priorities, Lila walked away with just over $420,000, less than the original $500,000, but more than enough to start again. She quit Coles the day the verdict came down. Her manager, a decent bloke named Trev, gave her a hug and a $200 meat tray from the deli as a farewell gift. "You deserve better than Nightville, love," he said. "Go live." First thing she did was drive north. No plan, just the Pacific Highway and a playlist of songs Dave used to belt out off-key. She ended up in Byron Bay on a whim, parked outside a real estate window, and saw the little weathered beach shack on Tala Beach Road. 2 bedrooms, wide veranda, peeling turquoise paint, and a backyard that ran straight onto dunes. The agent said it needed work, which meant it was affordable. She bought it outright the next week. Settlement was quick, cash buyer, no chain. On the day she got the keys, she stood on the veranda with Sarah, both of them barefoot, drinking champagne straight from the bottle while the sun dropped into the sea. "You did it, Leels," Sarah said, clinking bottles. "You bloody did it." Lila laughed, properly laughed, for the first time in years. Took long enough. She spent the next few months fixing the place up slowly, no rush. Sanded the floors herself, painted the walls white, planted frangipani cuttings along the fence. She got a part-time gig at a little cafe in town, just enough to keep her in coffee and company, but mostly she walked the beach, read books, and let the salt air scrub 8 months of grief and rage out of her lungs. Val wrote once from Silverwater, a whiny letter about prison food and how Lila should find it in her heart to forgive. Lila read it on the veranda, then used it to light the Barbie that night. The flames smelled faintly of cheap prison ink. Word got around the family grapevine, of course. Cousins she hadn't spoken to in years suddenly messaged, "Heard you bought a place in Byron. Reckon we could come visit." She left 'em on read. These days, when people in town ask how a 32-year-old can afford a beach shack on Tala, she just smiles and says, "Family helped out, in the end." They laugh, thinking it's a joke about inheritance. She lets them think it. Some evenings she sits on the veranda with a cold beer, watching the waves roll in, and thinks about Dave. She talks to him sometimes, out loud, no shame. Tells him about the new herb garden, the pod of dolphins that showed up last week, how the sunsets here are better than anywhere else. And every time, she ends with the same quiet words, "We're rolling in it now, mate. Like cheese and butter." Then she raises her bottle to the sky, takes a long swig, and smiles.